I don't think we're on mute. No,
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Worcester. A special welcome this morning to our friends from the Unitarian Society of
Hi,
Northampton.
Kathy. Are you doing
We're so glad that you're able to join us this morning. We hope that your time with us will be a time of refreshment, of finding some new friends, being able to pause for a moment in the midst of the hustle and bustle of the weekend, even as we are.
No, I have it. I have a different
To begin our service, I'm going to invite Matt to go ahead and mute all.
Pagari sari ga sani pagari sari sari ga pari ga pani sani sari sa ga pagari sari ga sani pagari sari sari ga pari ga pani sani sari sa sani paga pagari sari ga ri ga ni pagari sari ga ri ga ri ga pa ga pa ga pa ni sari ga ri sa ni ri sa ga ri sa ni pa ni ri ga ri sa sa ni sari ga ri sa ni pa ga ri sa ni pa ga ri sa ni pa ga ri ga pa ni ஏனிந்ததே பாவளி ஏனிந்ததே பாவளி ஏனிந்ததே பாவளி ஏனிந்ததே பாவளி உனக்கு நான் சொல்வேன் அறிவாயடி ஏனிந்ததே பாவளி உனக்கு நான் சொல்வேன் அறிவாயடி அறிவாயடி ஏனிந்த தீபாவளி புத்தாடை பட்டாசு பொங்கி வரும் சந்தோஷம் எத்தனையோ இனிப்பு நெய்மணக்கும் நெஞ்சங்கள் புத்தாடை பட்டாசு பொங்கி வரும் சந்தோஷம் எத்தனையோ இனிப்பு நெய்மணக்கும் நெஞ்சங்கள் புத்தாடை பட்டாசு பொங்கி வரும் சந்தோஷம் எத்தனையோ இனிப்பு நெய்மணக்கும் நெஞ்சங்கள் ஏன் இந்த தீபாவளி ஒன்றாக உறவினர்கள் நின்றாடும் கோலங்கள் ஊரெல்லாம் உலகமெல்லாம் ராகங்கள் தீபங்கள் ஒன்றாக உறவினர்கள் நின்றாடும் கோலங்கள் ஊரெல்லாம் உலகமெல்லாம் ராகங்கள் தீபங்கள் ஒன்றாக உறவினர்கள் நின்றாடும் கோலங்கள் ஊரெல்லாம் உலகமெல்லாம் ராகங்கள் தீபங்கள் ஏன் இந்த தீபாவளி ஏன் இந்த தீபாவளி ஏன் இந்த தீபாவளி உனக்கு நான் சொல்வேன் அறிவாயடி அறிவாயடி தீபாவளி
Our chalice lighting this morning are words by Deborah Burrell. Fire consumes and casts a bright light. May our chalice flame consume our regrets from the past, our fears about the future, and our worries about today. May it light for us a path of joy and peace.
I like that.
Let this be a house of peace, of nature and humanity, of sorrow and elation. Let this be our house, a haven for the healing, an open room for wisdom and our inspiration. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house, second verse. Let this be a house of freedom, guardian of dignity and worth held deep inside us. Let this be our house, a platform for the free voice, where all our secret differences here shall not divide us. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house. You can sing a different line if you got a higher voice. Let this be a house. You can sing. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of peace. Third verse. Let all in this house see true, where scientists and mystics abide in reverence here. Let this be our house, a house of our creation, where works of art and melodies consecrate the atmosphere. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of peace. Take your choice. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house. Fourth verse. Let this not be a house of prophecy. May visions for our children be our common meals. Let this be a house of myth and lore and legend, our trove of ancient stories and cradle of our memory. Let this be a house. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house. Let this be a house of peace. House of peace. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of peace. One more time. Let this be a house of peace. Of peace.
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Worcester's online Sunday morning worship service. We're glad that you have joined us virtually this morning. It's an act of love that we gather this way during this time of pandemic response. We hope that this service gives you an opportunity to pause for a few minutes to gather in community so that we might care for each other, take a moment to reflect on our own well-being, and discover opportunities for spiritual refreshment, even as we are at a personal distance. And a special welcome this morning to our friends from the Unitarian Society of Northampton and Florence who are joining us. We're so glad that you're here. We will gather this way at least through the fall. Through the next few weeks, our religious exploration program will be offering opportunities for children and youth to gather virtually as well. Please visit www.uucworcester.org for more information on these get-togethers, as well as other opportunities to meet for discussion and support. For safety purposes and so that we might come to know you better, as you are able, please list your name on your video feed. Please note that this service is being live streamed over Facebook and is being recorded and will be available on our church YouTube channel and our service archive on our website in the coming days. Following this service, you are invited to join us for virtual fellowship hour by remaining on this Zoom channel. Once again, welcome. Our opening words are by my colleague and friend, Cindy Landrum. Spirit of life and love. We gather together in different ways this morning, from computer screens, from telephones, from car radios. We gather reaching out across wires, waving from a safe distance to come together in religious community. From living room to front porch to car seat, we gather as we are able, ready to be of service to each other, to the world, ready to build community of hope and of love. As we face this bright morning, we are apart, but we are together, offering our love, our commitment, our hope, and our prayers in service to one another and this world. It is a new way, but an old way, that we come together in worship today. Please join together in your own voice with our opening hymn, Fire of Commitment.
Thank you.
want to welcome Robin Mickiewicz, our Director of Religious Exploration, for our Religious Exploration moment this morning.
Hi, good morning, everybody. This morning, we just had a wonderful time on our 9 a.m. Zoom doing a project, making some herb sachets, and families picked their favorite scents and smells and put them into a little cloth sack to use. And the reason we did this was to honor a person in this book named Peggy, who was an enslaved person that lived on a plantation. And this is the plantation. And the plantation was had 11 enslaved people working on it. And the owner died and the wife decided to move back to England. So she put all of her property for sale. And the 11 enslaved people were listed as part of her property, like the machinery and the house and the animals. We chose to highlight each person that worked on this plantation for their skills and their things that they were passionate about. So we focused on one. It was a great time piece and book to talk about and empathize with people who have fought for our freedom. This afternoon, our young middle school kids will meet for their Nick's Woods adventure, and this afternoon the youth group will be meeting at the Old Stone Church for their youth group meeting. So we have a exciting day planned and are feeling thankful for decent weather today. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin.
And the promise of a man.
Our reading this morning is by Benjamin Cutler. What is distance but a failure of light? Light pulled to its listless terminus, a rope grown heavy with reaching. Take, for instance, the third and fourth folds of a mountain, how they pale like lips bruised blue with need of breath. How from my distant seat beyond this window these peaks lose laurels and pines, rivers and vines, courageous greens that never feared to be so gray. And what of your window, where the light fails me entirely, where you read these lines despite this failing? Friend, let us tie each other a frayed photon into a new, far-reaching braid. Light needs such quiet, gentle work. Our offertory this morning is La Folle, Auchouet de Lin by Debussy. As we gather each week in this ritual of offering where we get to share that which is symbolic of our own efforts, our own values, and our own work. We invite you to participate by texting your offering to 508-231-5335 or to www.uucworcester.org/donate.
And is it on? What's it on?
I just tuned into it. I think it's a Facebook thing.
Oh, okay.
We come to that time of service when we are given pause to consider what is deepest in our hearts and most profoundly on our minds, or in the work of our hands in the days that have transpired or in the prospect of days to come. Joys and sorrows which touch us deeply and are given another measure of meaning because of our capacity to share them in the midst of a company that claims us as a co-journeyer. So I invite those of you who would like to share a joy or sorrow this morning to please unmute yourself so that I might call on you in turn. Or if you would like to have it shared by me, please place it in the chat with the phrase, please read, in order for me to locate it quickly. Are there joys or sorrows to be shared this day? I see Kit.
Oh, hi. My sorrow is that at the beginning of the pandemic, my son, for reasons I don't know, decided not to communicate anymore. And so it's been a very sad time in that sense, but I keep sending him love. And yes, that's it. I just miss him. And sometime he will decide that he can talk again. So that's my sorrow. Thank you.
So much, Kit. Are there other joys or sorrows to be shared today? I see my cousin and wife have COVID. This is from Kathy Lilly. They are both in their 80s, and I'm very worried about them. We offer our deepest love and surround you with all manner of care, Kathy, during this time. Bernadette.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, everyone, and welcome Northampton and Florence. We are so happy to have you join us today. My husband's mother lives in Amherst, so we're familiar with the terrain, and we're really happy to have you with us today. And what I really would like to say also is that I'm so grateful to have my husband's help with my mom. My mom has dementia and lives in assisted living, and my husband is a tremendous source of help for me with her. And she loves him very much, and he's very kind to her, and I really appreciate all he does to help me. So I'm very grateful.
Thank you so much, Bernadette. Susan. And you're muted, Susan.
Oh, there we go. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I have a sorrow to share that I work at a small hospital in Worcester, and there's been an upswing in the positive cases of COVID-19 as there has been, across the country. And sadly, 2 of my close coworkers on my unit tested positive this past week. So that's, pretty scary and frightening. So yeah, just that.
Thank you so much, Susan. We will keep all of you in our mind and in our heart during this week. In addition to that which has been shared on screen, the following also must be shared. Jan Netler writes, there are far too many deaths in this pandemic. And Stephanie Bard, our household lost our beloved cat of 14 years to throat cancer. He was my daughter's best friend. Elizabeth Rich writes, our brother-in-law has COVID. We are praying for a quick and complete recovery. We also celebrate our daughter Alice's 18th birthday this week. Diane reminds us that Deb Van Battenberg is doing much better. She is expected to be home from rehab soon. And our own Cheryl Lachey writes, the rise of COVID-19 cases has called me back out of retirement to support my chaplain colleagues at UMass Memorial by providing overnight call. All of these things that are deepest in our hearts are also most profoundly that which is the center of our prayer and meditation this morning. Let us be in the spirit of prayer and meditation. O Holy One, that which dwells deepest within and between and beyond us. We are mindful today of so many who are sick and hurting, who are fatigued and worried. Let us be mindful of our health, and let us maintain vigilance as we participate in providing that which is healthful to others. We have come to this moment with so much in our hearts for beloved animals that have been best friends, now who have crossed over, for brothers and wives, and cousins and sisters, and so many others whose lives and livelihoods bring us anxiety and instill in us a fervent hope for a brighter future. We would extend all that we are and all that we are capable of being into this world in this very moment as a healing presence, as companions through the storm, as the opportunity for life itself to be made manifest in the midst of all that would plague us. Give us strength and courage, hope, and the fortitude to carry that which is ours to carry. And in those moments when life lightens, let us also have the courage to find joy, moments of rest, the peace of music, the calmness of conversation, the ability to be in the midst of all that currently is. For all of this, and all of that that has gone unsaid but is no less true, right, or real this day, we give great and abiding thanks. Amen. And blessed be.
Amen.
सुख शांति और प्रेम की स्वर्णिम दुनिया दिवाली आई, दिवाली आई। दीपिता छाई छाई, रोशनी लाई लाई, जिंदगी गाई, खुशियां ही आई। होगा ये नया आसमान, ये जमीन, हम तुम मिलकर लाएंगे वो दुनिया यही। हैप्पी दिवाली, दिवाली, हैप्पी दिवाली, मुझको बाद मिले रूबरू ईश्वर से, दिव्य गुण से सजाया हमें, जो मानव से देव बने, जीवन गुलजार बने। अब ना होगा कोई दुखी संसार में, खुशियां ही खुशियां छाएगी बहार में। हैप्पी दिवाली, दिवाली, हैप्पी दिवाली, हैप्पी दिवाली, हैप्पी दिवाली,
And is told by ancient sages during Rama's happy reign, death, untimely, dire diseases came not to subject them. Widows wept not in their sorrow for their lords untimely lost. Mothers wailed not in their anguish for their babies by Yama crossed. Robbers, cheats, and gay deceivers tempted not with lying word. Neighbor loved his righteous neighbor, and the people loved their Lord. Trees their ample produce yield as returning seasons went, and the earth in grateful gladness never failing harvest lent. Rains descended in their season, and never came the blighting gale. Rich in crop and rich in pasture was each soft and smiling vale. Loom and anvil gave their produce, and the tilled and fertile soil, and the nation lived rejoicing in their old ancestral. Thus ends the English translation of the 11th book of the Hindu epic, the Ramayana, with the triumphant entry of Rama, Sita, and Lakshman to beloved Ayodhya, the place of no war. It is the end of one of the mythic stories central to northern Indian culture, told it is as it has been for thousands of years at this time of year, when many traditions, among them Hindu, Jain, Sikh, and Buddhist, celebrate forms of the festival Diwali, the festival of lights, when adherents in these traditions celebrate conquering good over evil. In many households, especially in India, the festival includes the lighting of small clay lamps which adorn the entryways and inner rooms of homes, a sign of the inner light which dispels the darkness, the light of truth against the veil of falsehood, of virtue over vice, and as is in the case in so many cultures, a time of new beginning, ushering as it does the new year in many parts of the world. The story, as it is summarized by Gene Johnson from New York University, goes something like this. Prince Rama was the eldest of 4 sons and was to become king when his father retired from ruling. His stepmother, however, wanted to see her own son, Bharata, Rama's younger brother, become king. Remembering that the king had once promised to grant her any 2 wishes she desired, she demanded that Rama be banished and Bharata be crowned. The king had to keep his word to his wife and ordered Rama's banishment. Rama accepted the decree unquestioningly. "I gladly obey my father's command," he said to his stepmother. Why I would go even if you ordered it." When Sita, Rama's wife, heard Rama was to be banished, she begged to accompany him to his forest retreat. "As a shadow to the substance, so a wife to husband," she reminded Rama. "Is it not the wife's dharma to be at her husband's side? Let me walk ahead of you so that that I may smooth the path for your feet," she pleaded. Rama agreed, and Rama, Sita, and his brother Lakshmana all went to the forest. When Bharata learned what his mother had done, he sought Rama in the forest. "The eldest must rule," he reminded Rama. "Please come back and claim your rightful place as king." Rama refused to go against his father's command, so Bharata took his brother's sandals and said, "I shall place these sandals on the throne as symbols of your authority. I shall rule only as a regent in your place, and each day I shall put my offerings at the feet of my Lord. When the 14 years of banishment are over, I shall joyously return the kingdom to you." Rama was impressed with Bharata's selflessness. As Bharata left, Rama said to him, "I should have known that you would renounce gladly what most men work lifetimes to learn to give up." Later in the story, Ravana, the evil king of Lanka, what is presumably present-day Sri Lanka, abducted Sita, the wife of Rama. Rama mustered the aid of a monkey army, built a causeway across to Lanka, released Sita, and brought her safely back to Ayodhya. In order to set a good example, however, Rama demanded that Sita prove her purity before he could take her back as his wife. Rama, Sita, and Bharata are all examples of persons following their dharma, so writes the scholar. As another commentator notes, the spiritual meaning of Diwali is the awareness of the inner light. At the heart of Hindu philosophy emphasizes the presence of that which is pure, infinite, and eternal, which is something beyond the physical and the mind. Diwali is a celebration of the awakening and awareness of the inner light. Although it is not seen externally, this inner light outshines all darkness, removes all obstacles, and dispels all ignorance. It awakens the individual to one's true nature, not as the body, but as the unchanging, infinite, and transcendent reality. With this inner realization comes universal compassion, love, and the awareness of the oneness of all things. The Sat, truth, the Chit, consciousness, and the Ananda, inner joy. For Hindus, this is the goal of life. This inner light outshines all darkness, removes all obstacles, and dispels all ignorance. It awakens the individual to one's true nature, not as a body, but as an unchanging, infinite, and transcendent reality. This week, this phrase in particular strikes me as an important antidote to the despair that seems to permeate so much of our common life as we delve back into the depths of the pandemic that currently plagues us. So much seems to have changed. So much seems to have been lost in this moment. So much continues to be at stake. Even in the wake of an election that many hailed as a victory and many as a defeat, when an epic of triumph over good over evil might easily turn into political commentary today, we continue to long for forms of lasting relief. Where is our liberation in the midst of this cosmic turmoil? Might the epic just described bring us some insight? The question at the heart of our common sojourn in this moment in time, at least to me, is what narrative will we embody as persons and as a people? What story shall we craft about this moment? The answer for me, related to the narrative at the center of this morning's reflection, lies within the feminist critique of the epic itself, and the story that is not often part of the centuries of its retelling. The story which relies on the creative consciousness of those whose lives appear only on the margins of the narrative, that when told opens us up to possibilities not yet realized. What if the real story of the Ramayana was not the triumph of good over evil, but the story of awakening to compassion, awakening to self-realization, awakening to community not dominated by power we have over others, but by the potential we have to companion others, especially those whom we have previously marginalized, by awakening to the wisdom of the stories hidden within the epic that are still waiting to be told, awakening to humility, awakening to our deepest selves. Consider this. Asta Tawari writes, "It's sad that a woman is glorified and treated respectfully only when she surrenders her dignity and mind. The historic epochs echo the chants of holy Sita, who is worshipped for her subjugated, obedient, and submissive role, and not because of her willed, strong personality. The episode where Sita is asked to prove her chastity and loyalty to Ram through a trial by fire is particularly significant in contemplating the relevance of the Ramayana. A woman who shows resilience and courage against any enemy and upholds her duty in crisis is asked to prove her purity not once, but twice. The lack of empathy towards Sita, who has undergone countless ordeals and hardships, is appalling." Enter Volga. And her retelling of the story of Sita, and here I'm relying on the work of Volga in her book, The Liberation of Sita, and its commentators. Early in her book, the author recasts the epic by depicting an encounter with Surapnakha, the sister of one of the members of the demon clan that Sita's husband and brother-in-law have been hunting while striving to protect the forest ashram which they have been exiled to. The epic tells of Rama's brother Lakshman discovering the relationship of the arriving beauty only to strike and horribly disfigure her in an effort to provoke his enemies. In Volga's tale, Sita's sons, while on a forest sojourn, discover a magnificent garden. While plucking flowers to bring home for the nightly ritual, they encounter a disfigured woman whose garden they have entered, and they return to tell their mother of their encounter. Sita suspects rightly that a woman is Sarpnaka and asks the boys to take her to the garden the next morning. Sita's encounter with the woman transform an epic tale of power and vengeance into an opportunity for awakening. Volga writes, "Tell me, Sarpnaka, how has your life been? As beautiful and joyous as this garden." "I'm happy to hear that, Sarpnaka. I was worried about you after the humiliation you suffered. I knew how you hankered after beauty. I was worried that, unable to accept your own mutilation, you might have resorted to something extreme. I was troubled by such thoughts whenever I remembered you." Sarpnaka was moved by the kindness and affection in Sita's eyes. A feeling of friendship sprouted in their hearts and thrilled them. "You are a brave woman," Sita said. Sita's sincere words of appreciation overwhelmed Sarpnaka. She felt a strong desire to narrate the course of her life to Sita. "Don't look at how I am today and imagine that all of this happened easily, Sita. I've become tough by facing up to the challenges that life threw at me. I've been able to find happiness in trying to understand the very meaning of beauty. My life was unbearable in the initial days after the mutilation. I loathed my appearance. I hated myself. There were also so many days when I wanted to kill myself. I wanted beauty. I wanted love, and I can't live without them. But I, who was such a worshiper of beauty, was turned into an ugly figure. Looking at my ugliness, men, all the handsome men that I desired, used to abhor me. Those days were hellish. I saw no point in living. My heart burned with pain and anger every single day. How much I cursed Sri Rama, his brother Lakshmana, and you. I spewed venom at all of you. There was not a trace of love left in me. Hate had gripped my heart. I, who loved beauty, began hating everything that was beautiful. My love of beauty turned into jealousy of all of those who were beautiful. I became a walking volcano, a stormy sea of grief." Their hearts grew heavy with the recollection of Sarpnaka's painful memories. "How did you come out of such sorrow, Sarpnaka?" "It was hard. It was hard finding the real meaning of beauty. I was so proud of my beauty. You don't know how much I adored my nose. The sharp noses of you Aryans look strange to me. There's beauty in strangeness too, of course. My nose was neither sharp nor flat. It was, I thought, exactly how Ishwar must have conceived the perfect nose in the beginning of creation. I was so proud of my nose. I used to adorn it with yellow and white wildflowers, which shone like stars on either side. And when my lovers tenderly kissed the tip of my nose, it used to arouse me. No one except I will understand what it meant to lose such a nose. I endured all that misery. I endured the burden of all of those perverted thoughts that arose out of my disfigurement. Sometimes I felt like disfiguring everyone and everything. To come out of that spitefulness, to love beauty once again, to understand the essence of form and formlessness, I had to wage a huge battle against myself. My only collaborator in the battle was this infinite nature. I struggled a lot to grasp that there was no difference between beauty and ugliness in nature. I observed many living creatures, and I understood that moment and stillness are one and the same. I discovered the secrets of colors. I had no guru in this matter. I pursued it on my own. I searched every particle in nature, and in every course of that search, my own vision has changed. Everything began to look beautiful to my eyes. I, who hated everything, including myself, began to love everything, including myself. To recognize that the response evoked in me by a little bird which had been pecked and displumed by its fellow birds was a feeling at once of love and beauty, and to seize that response and understand its meaning, the effort I made to achieve all this was extraordinary. Gradually, I began to love my hands. I learned how to create, to work, and serve with those hands. It took me more than 10 years for all this to happen. After 10 years of rigorous practice and hard work bore fruit, I began growing this garden. Supernaka unraveled before Sita the beauty and the truth of her life's journey, writes the author. Hidden in the retelling of well-known epics, there are stories of true liberation. As much as we feel like we are powerless in the midst of this current storm, we are not. There have been powerful stories, testaments to the resilience of the human spirit and its ability to manifest the best that we can offer in a world that so often seems out of our control and so ununderstandable. If we only wear a mask and maintain personal distance, we're told. Which begs a few questions. Will the story of the election this year be about winning and losing, power gained and power lost? Or will it be about awakening to that which divides and continues to hamper our evolution as a republic? Will the story of the disease that plagues us be about the arrival of an antidote, or will it be about awakening to our potential to care for each other? Will we be triumphant or humbled? Victorious at the vanquishing of that which we fear will destroy us? Or view this time as a moment in history when we discovered what life truly means together? Only time will tell what epic our ancestors will hear. Amen. And blessed be.
Amen.
Our litany this morning is from the famous author Anonymous, entitled Happy Diwali. Please respond in your own voice with that which is bolded. As echelons of a zillion lights adorn, and echoes of
triumph and
thunder swarm, watching even a tiny gleam perform, devouring ill, sparkling joy despite forlorn, exhorts a hearty and happy year, merely born. Our closing hymn this morning, Let There Be Light, Our closing words by Eileen Carpels. As we part now from one another, let these be our thoughts. If that which is most holy lies within the human person, and if the greatest power in the world shines flickering and uncertain from each individual heart, then it is easy to see the value of human associations dedicated to nurturing that light. The couple, the family, the religious community, the nation, and the world. For the power of good in any one of us must at times waver, but when a group together is dedicated to nurturing the power of good, it is rare for the light to grow dim in all individuals at the same moment. So we borrow courage and wisdom from one another to warm us and to keep us until we are together again.